I'm retired Sergeant First Class Brian Lintonen, veteran of the United States Army and Wisconsin Army National Guard. I'm a member here of VFW Post 690, as well as American Legion Post 90 here in Ashland, Wisconsin.
You are about to march on the great stage. The free men of the world are marching together to victory.
I'm here to present my uncle Hjalmar Olkonen. Hjalmar was a veteran of World War II, more specifically a D-Day veteran, and served and fought on the beaches of Utah, the Utah beach of the initial D-Day invasion and the initial assault phase of the D-Day operation. Hjalmar was born and raised in Ironwood, Michigan, and he enlisted in the United States Army on December 7th, 1942 in Marquette, Michigan. He was he served as a anti-tank gunner and gun crewman in light artillery for Alpha Battery of the 319th Field Artillery Battalion, 82nd Airborne Division. Hjalmar's unit, his glider Field Artillery Battalion, the 319th, was a big part of Mission Elmira. Mission Elmira was the initial assault phase of what would become Operation Neptune, which was the bigger part and all the parts of the big operation of Operation Overlord, which was the initial assault phase of the operation, and he was part of the glider drop into Utah Beach. He was in the serial number 32, the 436th Troop Carrier Group, in a group of 50 C-47s and 2 Waco and 48 Horsa gliders, so 50 gliders total in his serial. And his landing zone time on that fateful evening, late evening, early morning hours, was 2,300 hours on June 6, 1944. So he was he was into Utah Beach, and then later on he would be reporting for more of his battles in the war, but those were the most perilous of the initial assault phase of the invasion. His specific individual job as he was specifically a gun crewman, light artillery, and an anti-tank gunner. So his crew would essentially operate a howitzer cannon. The cannon was known as a pack howitzer. The crew had to be very skilled and in depth with operation of that cannon. It was known as a pack howitzer because that they could not easily, but they could strip it down into several of the major components, and it could be loaded onto whatever they had available to them to transport it in whatever terrain they were in. So if they were in mountainous terrain, if they were in which a lot of forested areas they fought in, they could pack the howitzer onto mules, onto whatever they had available to them, and move that equipment to where they needed to protect their perimeters as they advanced. They would primarily, my uncle's job was anti-tank, so they were defending against a lot of the Panzer movements, the German Panzer tanks at the time, and that was his primary function, was ensuring that the advance of the tank battalions were stopped. A very perilous operation, As far as pilot survivability, in Operation Mission Elmira, there was 15 killed, 7 wounded, and 4 missing in the glider pilots. Amongst the passengers, the crewmen, and everybody who was transported by glider, 33 were killed, 124 were wounded. As far as what they saw and what their welcome was on the ground, was a lot of what my uncle's primary duty was, defending against the tanks. The tanks were the Germans' primary advance whenever they would move forward try to penetrate through our lines and our defenses. So they would be moved up to the front of battle in a lot of the situations to set up their howitzers and move their howitzers to where they needed them, and defend perimeters, defend against the German advances. His time returning to Manchester, England, was July 24th of 1944. This was after the initial, it was a place called Papelin Hall, and this was as they were preparing to glide into Holland. And that was September 18th, 1944. So you see that there was a quick turnaround from that initial D-Day landing to the time where they were getting prepared to glide into Holland. He was a significant part of the Battle of the Bulge, which came on after, of course, as we went into the winter months. And he was promoted at that time, and this was on February 23rd of 1945. The battery at that time was now in France. And he was hospitalized for a short period of time. There was a lot of reports done on everything that took place as far as what the wounded were, everything that had to be done. And at that time was the 241st General Hospital. He reported back to duty on June 11th, 1945, and continued on. Kept on fighting in, I believe, 3 more battles after Battle of the Bulge. 3 or 4 more battles, because he had 6 total Bronze Battle Stars. His service rating at that time, what they did was called an Army Service Rating score. He was over 85, which meant that he was a high point soldier that could be eligible to return home. But he stayed. He was a high point soldier at that time, but he concluded his service career in Europe, and in the end, returning home from overseas, the final, what he earned in combat was 6 Bronze Battle Stars, the Bronze Arrowhead, the Good Conduct Medal, the Belgian Fourragere, the Presidential Unit Citation Badge, Victory Ribbon, and European, African, Middle Eastern Theater Ribbon. And he lived in Ironwood, Michigan. He worked in the iron ore mines, and passed away at age 81 in Ironwood in May of 1998 at his home. I had a great relation with my Uncle Hjalmar. He was my mother's uncle, my great uncle. We kept Hjalmar a big part of our family Christmases, our family Thanksgivings, every holiday. He and his sister Emily was my grandmother. So my grandpa, which would have been his brother-in-law, were very close, which I felt very happy about, that they were such close friends. And we always had Sunday football at my grandpa's house. Always he always helped us a lot with whatever we needed, whenever we needed it. He did that for a lot of people. He was a very, very reserved person, but he was just good company. I just enjoyed his company. We used to, in fact, take in some air shows in Ironwood area, and he would accompany us a lot. My dad, my grandfather, and I would go to the Ironwood, Ukibik Iron County Airport and be there for air shows. That's when he would tell some stories about the gliders. It was really one of the only times that he would really talk a little bit about his action in the gliders is when we would be taking in an air show. There would be things that he would share with us. So he was just in general a good Finn, right to the end.
Oh, good. Thank you for coming in and sharing today. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was my pleasure. I was really enjoying all the research that I did, and really having a lot of good memories of my uncle. Especially when I found the pictures and shared them with my mother, she really felt touched with the information that I found and the way that the 319th honored all their profiles of all their soldiers. It was really great to find a historical record like that I can share and make a part of this event.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing it with us.
Yep, you're very welcome.